I always love January because it means I get to give you guys my Halloween Horror Night speculation for this year's event. And I'm not gonna lie to you, in the past few years I have been very vague, giving you a wide array of different things I think can come to the event. But this time around I'm going to be giving you 10 haunted houses, maybe 11, 5 scare zones, some shows, and a potential icon that we can possibly see at this year's event. And now as a side note, before I get into my speculation, I know that there's already a Horror Night Nightmare speculation map out there and some code names as well, but do not fear, as we're going to be covering all of that in an upcoming video. But in this one we are going to be talking about everything that I think will be coming to Halloween Horror Nights this year, essentially giving you my own HHN 34 speculation. And to start us off, we're going to be diving straight into the haunted houses. Ever since 2018 we have had 10 haunted houses at the event, and we have been rumored to have 11 or 12 for the past few years. Now while I can see this being a thing that can happen this year, and I know that I would love to see it and you would as well, I think that a change that large might be in store for an anniversary year like HHN 35. But honestly, I wouldn't be mad if we got 11 houses at this year's event. But until that's concrete, I'm going to give you the 10 haunted houses that I believe will fill up this year's lineup. The first haunted house on the docket is Terrifier. Damon Leone is the director of the film franchise and has gone on record stating that he wants to bring Art the Clown to Halloween Horror Nights. That, paired along with the recent success of Terrifier 3 in theaters this past year, I believe there is no better time than now to strike the iron while it's hot and grant Mr. Leone his wish of bringing Art the Clown to HHN. But now the big question is, which film will we see at the event? I believe it will be perfect to have the entire trilogy in one haunted house rather than trying to stretch out certain scenes from individual movies, and this allows you to have multiple costumed Art the Clowns, a Santa Claus one, the black and white costume one, a bloodied one. It can just be endless possibilities of how you can see Art the Clown within this haunted house, and truly giving you the best of hits from the Terrifier franchise. And speaking of movie franchises that I believe will be great haunted houses for Halloween Horror Nights, we have the Conjuring universe. With the final film in the franchise releasing this year, and knowing how beloved these films are by horror fans, that paired along with the almost completely positive feedback HHN received last year from Insidious the Further, I believe it will be a perfect opportunity for the Halloween Horror Nights creative team to attempt to showcase the Conjuring universe in a very similar light to that of Insidious. And now this is all truly dependent on if the property returns to Six Flags Fright Fest or not. But I have a feeling that this very much can be the year that we finally get to see the Warrens at Halloween Horror Nights. And if they're able to secure the rights to the Conjuring, I think that this next property will be much easier to obtain for this year's event, and that property is Beetlejuice. This is a film that released last year and did phenomenal in the box office. People loved it. People were going to the theaters just to see this, and this is of course a property that has a history with Universal and Halloween Horror Nights both together, as Beetlejuice was featured at Fright Nights and Beetlejuice had a haunted house back at HHN 30. Now while the HHN 30 haunted house did have mixed reviews, but I truly feel as if Beetlejuice seemingly was made to transition a lot better into a haunted house with so many different whimsical sets and some fantastic creature designs. I think that paired along with the ghost host with the most can give you a fantastic haunted house that not only looks good but is also terrifying. Now this next haunted house is purely a wish, as if you guys did not know, I am a huge fan of Blumhouse, and I feel like it's finally time that we give Megan her flowers, as she has been featured at the last 2 HHN events, once as a roaming horde and once in a scare zone, but never in a haunted house. And it blows my mind with the popularity of Megan that we have never seen her in a house yet. But with the release of Megan 2.0 later this year, I think it might be time to give Megan a house. And honestly, if they don't trust her in a house on her own, you can go ahead and convert this into a Horrors of Blumhouse and honestly add the Black Phone, because it also has a movie releasing this year. And if I'm being honest here, I would have possibly put Five Nights at Freddy's here because it also has a movie coming out this year, but I do feel as if this is something that will show up at 35 because it's an anniversary year, and this feels like a property that'll show up at an anniversary year. But like I said, I do think the Horrors of Blumhouse featuring Megan and the Black Phone would be perfect, or just a house focused on Megan alone could also do very well due to the movies releasing this year. And speaking of things that are releasing this year, and also keeping my logic of every modern Halloween Horror Nights event needing an anniversary IP, we have Camp Crystal Lake releasing on Peacock this year. And if you didn't know, Camp Crystal Lake is a Peacock series that'll be releasing that is based on Friday the 13th. And the Friday the 13th film franchise will be turning 45 years old since the original movie came out in 1980. And I believe it'll be a perfect fit for the HHN 34 lineup, because not only is it celebrating an anniversary, getting a new release, but it is also something that hasn't been featured at the event in 10 years. And to me, that checks all the boxes for a Halloween Horror Nights IP house, meaning that I think this will just be perfect for HHN this year. Now moving to what can possibly be my last IP, or essentially my first original, I think we get some kind of vampire house. Now this could either be our Universal Monsters house, Nosferatu, or a completely original house. I know that we just had vampires prominently shown inside of the last Universal Monsters house, Eternal Bloodlines, but hear me out. I think it's time to have a new vampire house, as the last time we had one was 2017, and that was the Hive. And if you look back at some of the most popular scare zones we've had at Halloween Horror Nights, 3 of them were in the Vamp series. 55, 69, and 85 were all loved by fans, and honestly it would be fantastic to have a house based on that Vamp series. And if not, we can see Dracula, or even with the recent release of Nosferatu, I think some kind of iteration of a vampire house will be at this year's event. Moving away from the vampires and going towards another original, we now creep towards one of my pipe dream haunted houses, something that I've wanted to see at Halloween Horror Nights for a very long time, and that will be a sequel to a beloved original, and that is Dollhouse of the Damned from HHN 24. Now this is one of my all-time favorite haunted houses, and I truly believe that this haunted house needs a sequel. People need to see a modern version of this house. The closest we've ever gotten was when we got Puppet Theater Captive Audience, and that house was good, but not as good as Dollhouse, and I think it's finally time we see a sequel to this all-time fantastic haunted house. Honestly, you can keep the facade the same exact way and people will still love this house no matter what. But hey, I can go on for hours and hours about how good Dollhouse of the Damned was, but I have a lot more speculating to do, so with that being said, we'll move to the next thing here. With the original Slaughter Cinema in 2018, we saw houses that followed that were loosely tied into films that were featured in the original. For a super quick example, I will give you Yeti Terror of the Yukon, and I feel like why not repeat that same strategy with Slaughter Cinema 2? There are so many possibilities with the movies we saw in Slaughter Cinema 2, and I know we're going to see something in the near future no matter what. But hopefully this year's the year that we get to see a Western film used in a haunted house in the same vein of Hatchet and Chains, with it loosely maybe resembling Ghost Town as well. But if not, you guys know I would not be mad at all if we got a 3D house returning to the event, so we're looking at you, Heavy Metal Hell 3D. Please make it happen someday, Universal. You know we want a 3D house again, and by we, I mean me and Dreamport Productions. And now bouncing off a potential Slaughter Cinema spinoff, why not have a museum-esque spinoff? Taking that same logic of Slaughter Cinema taking a very popular scene and turning it into a full-on haunted house, and I think the best part of that museum haunted house this past year was that Viking room. And why not take a crazy spin on that Viking room by giving us a Norse mythology haunted house? Or if not Norse mythology, why not go ahead and give us a mythological creature in general, something like the Loch Ness Monster or Mothman, that could truly bring us something that we haven't seen before in a haunted house, at least not in a little while. And finally, for our 10 house slate, I figure why not carry on the idea of having an icon at this year's event, as we've had one every single year since 30. We've had the Pumpkin Lord, Dr. Oddfellow, and then Sinister and Surreal, which were essentially all new icons that have never held the helm of the event before. And I honestly feel like Universal should continue to do this, essentially giving us brand new horror icons every single year, and potentially finally giving us a proper introduction to who I think will be this year's icon, Nathaniel Crow. We've seen him featured in haunted houses in the past like Scarecrow, but we never have been able to see what Nathaniel Crow's full potential could possibly be. And with Mike Aiello back in charge of Halloween Horror Nights, I think this is a perfect opportunity to bring back an unused original concept that they had from Halloween Horror Nights past and essentially show it to a brand new audience, giving everyone the opportunity to learn and love Nathaniel Crow. Now I will add this in here, as it's widely speculated online and it could possibly be the 11th house. If we do have 11 houses, The Last of Us Part 2 could possibly be a great addition to the lineup. As the first house back at HHN 32 created monster lines and was honestly a fan favorite for many, I think adding this to the already stacked lineup might be a perfect way to help crowd control and honestly get people to go to the event to see something that's essentially brand new, but also something that's returning, so keeping people in that excited loop of, hey, let's go see how different this house is from how it was in the past. And those are all the haunted houses that I will be speculating. Now of course things will change because there's no way this is exactly what's coming to the event, but hey, we're throwing that out there just for fun. Now as for Scarezones, Scarezones, I've had a personal vendetta with the Production Central Scarezone over the past few years, as this zone typically is used as a throwaway zone, essentially either a table of content zone or a zone that just features a hodgepodge of random characters with chainsaws. But I will say this, I believe that this zone for 34 will be very similar to Dr. Oddfellow's Collection of Horrors, in the aspects that this zone will be our icon zone, and if my guess of Nathaniel Crow has anything to do with it, I think this zone may be very similar in vibe to Scarecrow Cursed Soil blended with Twisted Tradition, as we see actual props in this zone along with a multitude of scare actors that tie in respectively to the icon himself, maybe some pumpkin people, maybe some scarecrows, a little bit of people here, a little bit of people there, something that actually makes sense of it being a scare zone rather than this just being something that's showing you everything that's in the park. And now moving away from Production Central and to New York, I believe this is where we will see a holiday themed scare zone, not just a zone focusing on one holiday, but a zone focusing on a multitude of holidays. Think about this zone as a Holidays in Hell from HHN Hollywood style of zone that will give us stages scattered all around New York showcasing the different holidays. We could see 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day, Halloween, Christmas, Arbor Day, so many holidays to choose from, but I will say it will be pretty awesome to see how many different unique characters they can put in this zone. I think it will be a home run, and it's something that I've wanted forever, so throwing it out there into the ether, hopefully it happens. And as we go to San Francisco, we find ourselves with what I believe could be an IP scare zone, and I believe this would be a music-based zone, with the potential of The Weeknd returning and giving us The Weeknd Nightmare Trilogy as a scare zone, allowing it to be a party atmosphere in San Francisco, essentially with this whole scare zone feeling like the cue for The Weeknd's After Hour Nightmare. But this time around we add scare actors. And if not The Weeknd, we could even see a new music-based IP, as potentially we could see an Ice 9 Kills Welcome to Horrorwood style zone that can go hand in hand with the Terrifier house and would truly be a work of art. And now as for Central Park, I think that the safest speculation, or the safest way to do this, is by just giving the fans something that they've wanted for so long, and I mean for so long now, and that is putting the pumpkins back in the trees for the scare zone. I feel like that's all I need to say about this. Maybe, just maybe, people won't be happy about this if I say it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Maybe the zone could tie into Little Boo as we start to set up for a big year at 35. Maybe we could finally see Little Boo Origins as a scare zone. And last but not least, we have Hollywood, which I think we can have a scare zone that could possibly be a sequel to an original scare zone. And that would be Invasion from HHN 27. I feel like enough time has passed since the last time we've had an alien-based scare zone, or even an alien-based haunted house for that matter. So I think it's time for them to come back and give us aliens taking over Hollywood Boulevard, whether it's comedic or actually horrific. I think this will be a perfect take on Invasion, and it'll be a fun way to keep it going, kind of like they kept Vamp going with different iterations. Have a different iteration of Invasion here in Hollywood. And that's it for speculated scare zones. I will say that I think the HHN bar should return because it was such a cool and unique idea that it just felt like it was a forever part of Halloween Horror Nights. So me personally, I want to see that back because it added to the entertainment that we needed in the park, because the only entertainment we had was Nightmare Fuel and the Death Eaters. And I honestly think that this should not be the case. I honestly think that we need anywhere from 2 to 3 shows. Now with the closure of Ride Rocket in September, the capacity for this year's event will be tough to manage without a second show. So I believe we will get another iteration of Nightmare Fuel in the Fear Factor live stage show, a brand new Lagoon show that is very similar to Marathon of Mayhem, and then the third show would be a comedy style show that would be very similar to Bill and Ted, but it's not Bill and Ted, located inside of Animal Actors. And all that is a long way of saying that is my HHN 34 speculation. That's what I think will be at HHN this year. Let me know down below what are some things that you would like to see at this year's event. What are your HHN 2025 speculations? Let me know, I'm curious. Also, if you stayed to the end of this video, first of all, thank you. And secondly, we have another video that will be coming very soon. Like I said earlier in the video, that will be focusing on the speculation map as well as the code names that have released recently. So stay tuned for that. If you guys like this video, do me a huge favor and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you guys already haven't done so, and stay excellent, my dudes.